This video certainly isn't the one I expected to be making after our recent voyage on board the Sky Princess. I thought I was going to be making your typical room tour, but it turned into so much more. Yes, we're going to have a look at the features and the pros and the cons of the Deluxe Obstructed Balcony, but we're also going to take a deeper dive into why stateroom selection is so important and how you can maybe save yourself some aggravation. My name's Andrew, and welcome back once again to Tidal Horizons. We're your go-to source on YouTube for straight-up cruise advice, news, and information. And we're a bit of an expert when it comes to princess cruises. Let's get started. We're going to look at the stateroom first, and then talk about some of the issues I had with it and how you can avoid the same issues next time you book your cruise. We sailed in staterooms Emerald 106 and 108, which are deluxe balcony obstructed staterooms at the very front of the ship. A little backstory on this cruise, because despite the advice I'm going to dish out, I really couldn't put much of it into use because we only booked 3 weeks before the departure, and the cruise was sailing during the typical spring break period. For full disclosure, I was sailing on the public posted rates, not on travel agent rates or any sort of promotional discount from Princess. Let's tour the room and I'll tell you how we ended up here. If you're a past passenger with Princess, there's no real surprises here. The layouts of the balcony cabins are all very similar. A generous sized closet with plenty of shelf and hanger space, along with a cupboard with shelves and of course your personal safe. I'll tell you, it took a lot of perseverance in checking multiple times per day before I was able to allocate 2 cabins side by side on a ship that time of year that would suit my family. So this location is about as best as I could do. Let's have a look at the washroom. It's a fairly generous size for ships these days again, with plenty of storage areas below and above the sink. I'm a big guy, but I have no issue with the size of shower. Princess's course is switched over to refillable shampoo, conditioner, and body wash, just like most land-based hotels and other cruise lines. The room is a comfortable size. We are sailing with 2 adults and 1 child in this room. We've sailed with 2 children in a room this size, and it was very cramped. There are USB plugs in the lamp bases, but no electrical sockets by the bed. Anyone who has sailed with the Princess ship will know that the beds are very comfortable. Even the pull-out sofa got rave reviews from my son. The room also has a large interactive TV. Of course, you have lots of on-demand movies, TV shows, live TV, as well as the safety video, which is part of the muster drill process, and access to Ocean Now. Our room tour had everything laid out for us, with details about the ship, and of course the all-important Princess Patter. The desk area has a multitude of plug types, with 2 North American-style plugs available. We did find the lighting, though, a little bit dim around the desk. There were some drawers in the bedside tables, otherwise everything else is stored in the closet. It was also nice to have the little sofa during the day. Our room steward converted it each night. In the drawer, you'll find a hairdryer. There's a minibar fridge, ours being set up with a small selection of beverages as Elite Captain Circle member. He later added an ice bucket, and we stored some additional bottled water in it, which was included with the Princess Plus package. Let's check out the balcony. It's huge, and really a great feature for this stateroom. There's tons of space, it's partially covered from above, so you get the best of both worlds, sun and shade, and very private. What makes it an obstructed balcony is the metal hull being the front of the balcony rather than glass. If you have a small child, this might not be the best cabin because there is a bit of a step up and a rather large hole at the bottom. As I said, we did have the cabin next door as well, which opened up later to create a huge space we could spend time on. I obviously took this video a little bit later in the trip while we were out at sea. We had no major issues with the cabin itself. There are a few design elements in these cabins that could have been taken into a bit more thought. For example, when the sofa bed's pulled out, it's impossible to open the fridge without closing the bed partially. I also detest the motion-activated light outside the washroom. The issues we had were all to do with the location of the services and venues on board, who we were cruising with, and where the cabin was located. For some, this might be the perfect cabin locations. For others, not so much. Before we get into what did work and didn't work, and some of my top tips for cabin selection, I'd like to ask that you take a second to hit the like and subscribe to the channel. You'll also find a link in the description of this video to our newsletter, which is filled with timely, useful advice from Princess and around the cruising world. Your support really helps and is very much appreciated. So what didn't work for us? Well, I bet a lot of you are going to say the noise from the Princess Theater, right? Wrong. We were much further forward than the theater. Once the noise was an issue, and that was during our stop at Princess Key when the anchor was put down. It was less of a noise than a small earthquake at sea, but no complaints. It was actually pretty cool. Mostly for us, it was that everything for the kids, like the kids club and the buffet, were at the extreme opposite end of the ship. Same with the laundry and with our dining reservations. Having an 8-year-old traveling with us who had to be checked in and out of the club by a parent, it made for a lot of walking time. For the theater, midship pool or spa, it was perfect, but we didn't use those as much on this particular trip. Pretty minor stuff, just time consuming. Location is one of the most important factors when you're booking a stateroom, and a little planning goes a long, long way. So, what should you consider when you're looking at staterooms? Let's have a look at my top 5 factors. The first wasn't an issue for us on this voyage, but if you're prone to motion sickness, the front of the ship is the last place you want to be. The closer you can get to the middle of the ship and on a lower deck, the less motion you'll feel. Today's ships are equipped with motion stabilization, which counteracts the side-to-side rolling, keeping the ship as upright as possible. This does lessen the importance of being on a lower deck, but it does nothing if the ship is rocking from front to back going into the waves. The middle of the ship is a pivot point, and you'll feel less motion than at the bow or the stern of the ship. Number 2 on our list of considerations when you're picking a stateroom is the location of the amenities and the venues that you anticipate wanting to use most. For us, traveling with kids, it's going to be that kids club, the buffet, and our primary restaurant. We'll often run the youngest back to the room to change before or during dinner, before going to the club for the evening. So if we can have all 3 at the same end of the ship, it's a win-win. Next time we're on a Royal Class ship, you can bet that we'll be booking at the aft of the ship. Consider the venues that you're most interested in. Plan your stateroom accordingly using the deck plans available on princess.com or with your travel agent. Pay particular attention to where the laundry is. You don't necessarily want to have your stateroom immediately outside the laundry room door. It tends to be a spot where people gather. Third on my list is what's around the stateroom. I like to look for rooms that have a buffer of other rooms around it, either above or below to the sides. If there's a bulkhead door as one of the walls, that's an extra bonus because unlike the paper-thin walls of most of the cabins, you have a nice big thick piece of steel between you and the next room. You can see these doors in the hallways on the deck plans. I try and avoid being under the pool deck where pool chairs get scraped along the ground, restaurants for the same reason, or too close to the theater or nightclubs where they might be playing bass-filled music, then that will reverberate through the cabin. This, of course, isn't a perfect recipe because you never know who your neighbors are going to be. Number 4 on my list is the proximity to the elevators and the stairs. This is really a personal preference. Some people find the elevator lobbies to be loud. Some people want to be close for mobility or ease of access. It's really up to you. I will say that I found Princess's elevator lobbies to be quieter and perhaps a bit more civilized than other cruise lines. My ideal is to be at least 5 staterooms away from the entrance to the elevator area. More if it's the central elevators with the observation elevators, they tend to be a little bit busier. That brings us to the 5th item on my list, the design of the balcony. This depends heavily on the ship that you are on, but the design of the balcony can vary. Some, like ours this trip, are metal front with a partial overhang, while balconies for mini suites on the Grand and Crown class have no cover at all. On the newer Royal and Sphere class ships, there are odd balcony angles and sizes due to the design and the flow of the ship. Between Princess's deck plans, YouTube, and other review sources, you should be able to narrow in on what a cabin will be like. My best recommendation is to purchase the best cabin location for your budget and your needs up front. You'll want to consider this when bidding on upgrades because they could be anywhere. Working closely with a travel agent who has detailed knowledge of the ships can also be a big benefit. If you need help planning your next cruise and live in the USA or Canada, reach out to me using the contact form in the description of the video. I may be able to help. I hope you find these videos helpful and informative. If you do, give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. and to my newsletter. You'll want to check out these videos too for more helpful tips and tricks when it comes to planning your next cruise. Thanks for watching.